Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. As you can see on my desk, I've printed a bunch of different proxies for me to bring to my local game shops and share the game around. This will be a casual form video talking about how to print proxies so that you can play the game physically a bit earlier before the actual launch, or even if the game launches to save a bit of money to test some decks physically. So first of all, you need to have a deck in mind that you want to grab. I recommend testing them on Tabletop Simulator or Pixelborn before you actually do print them out, so you don't waste as much paper. So to start off, you will need a deck, so you can either browse it through the deck library, you can create your own, and if you already have your own, you can go to that right here. So say I want to print this Teemo deck, make sure you have your legend, your runes, your 3 battlefields, your main deck, and as well as potentially including your sideboard. I would recommend you including some cards in the sideboard. It might not be actually be your sideboard, but just other cards in general that you may want, just to fill up all the pages, so that there's no blank squares being printed in one of the pages. Now we will export our deck right here. We will go to this button, 3 dots right here, and we'll go to Print Proxies as PDF. In this state where you have 8 cards in your sideboard, I recommend you removing the legend and just checking battlefields, champion, runes, sideboard, so that it will fit all into 7 pages rather than having an extra card on the 8th page. Make sure that it is US letter size, so your printed cards will be printed in standard size, and then click on Generate and Download PDF to finish it off. So as you can see from the generated PDF, we are missing our champion legend because we excluded it from the proxy printing. However, we do have 7 full pages of cards, including our sideboard right here. If we were to include our champion, it will have to print an extra page with just 1 card on it, which is a bit of a waste. So you'll keep doing this on all the decks you want to print again, so just keep exporting them as PDFs. After you've gotten all your decks, let's print out the missing legends that we haven't included, as well as potentially other tokens and other stuff. So we'll go to the top bar right here, go to Tools, and click on Proxy Generator. And then right here, it's a bunch of selection of cards that you can choose to have printed as proxies as well. So we can sort it by the legends, and then we can just add all the legends that you've included prior in your deck list, so this is how we can get them back. So let's just add our Jinx and our Teemo back. We can also add additional things that may be used, such as tokens for might tokens or recruit tokens. So we can add one of these. If we want to add multiple cards, you can just click it multiple times. If you want to remove the card from the proxy sheet, all you do is you have to just click it and then it'll remove it. There is another option to add every single card once, as well as to add every single card 3 times. However, if you do that, that will add a lot of cards, and you need to be cognizant whether or not your printer can handle this, or if you're willing to spend that much printing proxies. Secondly, there may be a lot of popular cards, and if you're building multiple decks, like, I don't know, 5 plus, you might need more than 3 copies of each card. For example, a lot of red control decks like using Falling Star, just because it is a good removal tool. Anyhow, in this section, you can also pick a few cards that aren't in your main deck, but you see yourself potentially using in the future, so you can also grab them right here and just add it to the proxy sheet. And then after the proxy sheet is full, per se, with the cards you want, then you can just export it as PDF again. Now that you have all your PDFs made, if you were doing it at home alone, it's fine, you can print the PDFs off one by one. However, if you're planning to commission a printing company to do it for you, often you need to merge all the PDFs into a single file. So you can just go type PDF merger on Google, select one of those, upload your files together, and merge them there to a single PDF. After you generated your merged PDF, it is time to print. So here are some printing tips and tricks. Since my color printer is not the best, I decided to reach out to a company to have them print it for me. Value-wise, I think this is a good investment as well, because ink nowadays is pretty expensive, especially in color, as well as high-quality paper is also quite expensive. Anyhow, let's get on to tips and tricks. I recommend printing in color. If you're showing new people how to play, the color definitely helps, especially when you have to pay for power costs. Next, I recommend printing or selecting printing options if you're offloading it to a company to print on cardstock, postcard, or flyers. If those aren't available, at least on higher quality paper, so it's not as flimsy. this is the option that I chose. Otherwise, if you are printing just on paper, potentially just add a piece of card bulk at the back of the paper to support it. Additionally, if you are offloading it to a company to print, make sure to ask for quotes. This is especially true because Riftbound cards cover a large percentage of the paper and it uses a lot of ink, so it may occur additional charges. If you choose for it to be done by a company and you are printing on cardstock or postcard, you should choose between matte or gloss finish as well. In my opinion, I prefer gloss a bit more to make the colors on the cards pop. However, there are other considerations as whether you want the card to be very reflective or considering fingerprints or dust pickup if you decide not to use sleeves. And then lastly, if you are asking a company to do it, ask if they can cut for you. Their machines will cut faster than you could ever. And yes, it will take forever to cut if you are printing multiple decks. So maybe it's worth the additional fee if they offer cutting services as well. Okay, let's move on to the cutting options. Unfortunately, the printing company that I printed my cards on did not offer cutting services, so I did have to cut the cards. What I used to cut the cards were mainly a paper cutter. So this cuts one sheet at a time. It's much slower, but it is a bit more precise, and you can use the edges, the raised edges here, to line up the paper a bit better. Sometimes if you are cutting cardstock and the cutting thing is not sharp enough or you don't press hard enough, it may leave just a trail and not fully cut. So potentially you'll need an X-Acto knife and a ruler to finish cutting off the card. There is another option for paper cutting just on your own at home. It's with one of these guillotine style ones. So you can potentially stack a lot more pages onto here and then just slice it. However, just keep in mind to hold the pages very tightly so that when the guillotine cuts, the papers won't shift and then ruin your cutting. I'd say cutting a full deck of around 60 cards will take like 15 to 20 minutes using the slower method. Okay, moving on. After everything is cut, here's my setup for sleeving everything. So I'm right-handed, so you want the sleeves on the left to easily access your sleeves with your left hand and pop them open. And then your cut images or your cards on the right to easily just grab them with your right hand and stick them into the sleeve. I probably won't consider double sleeving them because these are just proxies, but I am using different colored sleeves for various types of cards. Also, after you sleeve your deck, make sure to press all the air out of them. So what I did was I stacked everything up neatly and then placed a textbook or a wooden block just right on top of it to squeeze all the air out. P.S. If you know what the textbook is right here, let me know in the comments below. It is a pretty good book for what it teaches. Okay, next I'll walk you through how I sleeved my cards. So my main deck is in a colored sleeve. My rune deck are in clear sleeves, but the cardstock has a white backing, so you can see it's white right here. So the reason why I chose clear sleeves for this is so you can interchange some runes potentially with other decks, since all the rune decks have a clear sleeve and a white backing. Similarly with the battlefields, all the battlefields within all my decks will have a black sleeve, so potentially you can interchange them. The Legend and Chosen Champion is also in a black sleeve, just to make sure that you can fish them out quickly when you are resetting a game. Sleeving around 60-ish cards take around, I'd say, 6 minutes on average. And here is the culmination of all the proxies I generated. So here are 14 different decks, all with their own runes, battlefields, and legends. Up here I have just some extra printed cards that I didn't sleeve yet that I potentially see myself using in the future. And right here in this section right here are all my tokens and extra battlefields. Of course, to include in your deck box some counters to signify the increase or decrease of might, as well as dice to determine dice rolls to see who goes first. On the topic of these dice and tokens, there are 3D printed files available publicly. So here are some tokens that I 3D printed. The files are by shiny underscore on Thingsverse. They're printed on transparent filament, and then I used a Sharpie to go over them in black to make them pop a bit more. Anyhow, this wraps up my video on printing proxies for Riftbound. I hope you all enjoyed. Any feedback will be greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed this casual style of content as well. Alrighty, bye bye.